Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Joanna and I want to talk everything pregnancy. Now, I'm currently about 6 weeks pregnant, 6 weeks and 3 days. And I want to look back on last week, week 5. I knew at this point, and I wanted to sum up everything that happened in week 5, from the development of baby to my symptoms and my experience. If you'd like to follow along with week by week updates on the development, what happens, what's the science of it, and also symptoms, please do subscribe and you can follow along the journey. Week 5 is a really important week in terms of baby's neurological development. This week, baby is developing their neural tube. It's basically this little open tube that's going to form their brain and their spine. So that's basically like the core of your central nervous system. So you need to be having as much choline and folic acid as possible to support neurological development. So look into getting some pregnancy vitamins, they'll really help. I've got this book here, right? I got it from Amazon in my first pregnancy. This is my second pregnancy. And the baby is currently looking like a little tadpole. They are in a little sort of curved shape as their neural tube and their spine start to take shape. They do have a bit of a head now, and they're measuring about 2 millimeters. This book does say 4, but everywhere I've seen online says about 2. They're about the size of a sesame seed, so pretty small. Now in the first trimester, you're basically just escalating the amount of HCG that you have, and progesterone and some estrogen as well. And the increase in all of these hormones are going to cause a lot of developments for baby, but also a lot of side effects for yourself. So at this point, the placenta is creating HCG. This is a hormone, I'm probably going to butcher this, called human chorionic gonadotropin, something like that. It's basically a hormone. It's released by the developing placenta to support pregnancy. And it's going to lead to very nice early pregnancy symptoms like fatigue and nausea. At this point, the placenta is just starting to develop, so is the umbilical cord. So baby is very much connected to you at this point in your uterine wall. Baby has blood vessels connected to you, and the blood will start pumping as well, which leads me on to the heart. As I said, the brain and their spine is developing, but other major organs are also starting to develop this week, including the heart. And by the end of week 5, maybe the start of week 6, there'll probably be a heartbeat. I should have 2 heartbeats in me at the moment, which is amazing. At this point, I said baby is sort of in a little curve shape. This is because they have the head, but going through to their spine and leads into a tail, which will eventually become limbs. And speaking of limbs, they're also starting to develop these little arm and leg buds. At the moment, they're just kind of these tiny, tiny little folds. Probably could barely even see them, but they will become arms and legs. First trimester is basically all about growing your placenta. The placenta is an organ that you grow just for your baby to deliver oxygen and nutrients to your baby to keep them growing and nice and healthy. At this point, the placenta isn't really providing much nutrition. The yolk sac is. It's kind of like a chicken egg. You have like the yolk in the middle that is the most like calorically dense, that has loads of fat and all these nutrients. Well, that's because it's meant to like kind of support a baby in pregnancy. So this little white blob is the yolk sac. So that's pretty much what is happening with baby. But because you're going to be increasing a rise in HCG and progesterone, you're going to be starting to feel all these side effects, such as nausea and fatigue, and with the rise of progesterone as well, you're going to start getting sore boobs. So I'm going to talk about my symptoms because I think they're quite typical. In week 5, I actually started to get quite a lot of symptoms. I started the week by having quite a lot of headaches, particularly at night. They would come and they would go, and I took paracetamol a few times because they were just like lingering right at the front of my head. I also started to develop nausea as well, morning sickness, very much not a morning thing. Personally, I haven't been sick. I wasn't sick really in my last pregnancy, I think just like once. But it's quite like a nausea that hangs over you as if you were hungover, if one were to partake in those sort of activities. I very much do not anymore, been a long time. I started to have some fatigue as well. I will say though, I do have a breastfeeding 1-year-old who still does wake at night, so that probably does contribute to the whole fatigue kind of thing. Funny though, because in my first pregnancy I had all the time in the world to rest really. I was supply teaching, so it was quite inconsistent. So if I wanted to go for a nap, I could. Now I've got a 1-year-old, naps do not exist. Because I'm a breastfeeding mum, a few weeks ago, my boobs had they were quite small. They started to shrink back down, probably because my baby feeds fairly infrequently. He doesn't use milk for the bulk of his calories anymore, but he does like his milk. Now, the past week, my boobs doubled in size. This is because of progesterone and also prolactin. Basically, breast tissue is going to start developing milk ducts in order for you to breastfeed later on. My boobs got bigger, which is ironic because I'm already breastfeeding. I also started to feel a little bit breathless, and I feel that actually talking now. This is something that I noticed when I'd go on walks with Harris, that I'd be walking, pushing the pram, and I started to feel breathless, and I was like, how already? And actually, yes, it's normal to feel breathless quite early on in pregnancy. There are a few reasons. Basically, you will be starting to produce more blood. You've got a whole another organism and organ that you're developing, so there's a lot of extra blood that's going to be made. This also means that your blood pressure is likely to drop as well, so lower blood pressure, more blood, and making all of that good stuff. You also have all of these hormones to contend with, so there's a lot going on. I also started having some insomnia. For most of the nights during week 5, I really struggled to get to sleep and to get back to sleep. And an interesting symptom, which is, I would say, fairly atypical at this stage, is lightning crotch. Lightning crotch, it kind of is what it sounds like. It feels like you've got lightning going through your crotch. This is normally something that develops a bit later on in pregnancy, like week 12, sort of going into your second trimester. Mainly because your uterus, as it starts to push outwards, it starts to stretch, and it can basically just trigger some nerves and be a bit uncomfortable. However, I do think this is probably because my uterus already has started to expand. Obviously, it's housing a baby, amniotic sac, amniotic fluid, and a placenta as well. So there's quite a lot going on there, and it will probably just be expanding a wee bit. I only had that for one day though, so I'm not particularly worried about that. I have had some mild cramping as well, but again, as long as it doesn't last, then it's all good, it's all normal, don't worry yourself. Last but not least, the most fun symptom is that I've had quite a lot of bloating. I've looked in the mirror and I've thought, am I starting to show already? I've been on the internet, can I show at 5 weeks pregnant? Obviously it's my second pregnancy, so I'm probably going to show a little bit earlier because my abdomen walls, they've been stretched open. Actually, it's just because of bloating. I think it's that extra progesterone can lead you to start bloating, which is very uncomfortable and not very nice. So that's pretty much the development of your baby, who is an embryo at this stage, in week 5 of pregnancy. And those are my symptoms that I have had. Have you had any symptoms like that? Let me know in the comments. If you do want to follow along this journey, I'm going to be posting every week about the symptoms, unless it's really bad and then I'm too tired or unwell, then you can probably tell if there's a week missing. But if you'd like to follow along, please do hit subscribe, like, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.